committed to fight through, and what we go through daily as politicians requires you to
learn how to hit the ball.
Yeah, but I'm happy to be here, and greetings to my colleagues here.
Thank you. Lydia is in the house. You're most welcome, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, in a new yellow shirt. Is that the one for this season? For tomorrow?
Good morning, Oscar, and to the gangsters who are in the house. Also, good morning to our listeners and viewers. I'm in a bright yellow shirt
clearly,
with an NRM logo, because from here I'm going to Mubende. We are mobilizing for the 39th anniversary. I had Mr. Cheno introducing us saying 39 years of trauma.
Yes.
Unless trauma has received a new definition or meaning, well, you'll have the gang and go home and be happy. But you take what you want. I think Uganda is like a big elephant. Some touch the tail and say, oh, it's such a small country. Others the track, others the foot. You choose what you want to do. But with a country that has peace in the center of so many troubled neighbors,
Are you sure?
I think I'm happy to wear my yellow today and make that humble contribution. Thank you.
Okay, and we have a guest. You're most welcome to the Capital Gang, Honorable Mbide.
Thank you very much, Oscar.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Ponopono, really, you need to protect me from him. He caricatures my method of speech. But I also had him.
Yes.
In Rimini, he stated that the weather is Chile.
Yeah.
Chile is also not very friendly to ordinary speakers of the English language.
I also wonder
so he's equally the same.
Mean,
yes,
it isn't that cold.
It means majorly wintry and frigid, and so clearly, Mr. Ponopono, you are in my category.
Right.
Of the grandiloquence. First of all, I always take it as an honor when each time I'm invited to this show. So this is one of the best shows I have always admired since my Makerere days.
Give it another good English word.
Well,
extremely splendiferous and splendiferous. Yes. So whenever I'm invited, I take it as a qualification added to me. Yes. I'm also, of course, prepared for tomorrow's liberation. I have identified that for us now, I've convened an ethnic subgroup in Uganda tomorrow that now require new liberation. They have identified that they are non-citizens after living in a country for all and sundry. The Banyarwanda, majorly those that when you calculate the period of 1926, they actually don't fall within the description of indigenous ethnic communities. And it's a very serious matter. So tomorrow they are going to sign a memorandum for a proposed bill that shall take to the president for amendment of Article 10 to remove a threshold that was an importation. It was an importation. It had never existed in the laws of Uganda. Person is invented it, and it declared the person is born in Uganda, non-citizen by birth. So I think that is something we need to clear.
it is a discussion that we shall have another day, but now let's begin with what's on the table, NRM. I'm yet to decide, Honorable Mukasambid, are you NRM or?
No, I'm the Vice President of the Democratic Party.
Is it Democratic Party in NRM or?
Not at all. But of course, the Democratic Party signed an agreement,
right,
to cooperate with the National Resistance Movement on several accounts that included, among others, the respect for fundamental rights, of course, establishment of a trajectory for a transition, among others. The agreement also stipulated that we were to hold a meeting for purposes of the commencement of talks to handle the same. We are getting to 2 years. It was also intended that since amendments were part of the discussion, then we ought to be given a tool that will lead the amendments, and that tool was provided. So our president was was taken, given the docket that definitely presents bills to Parliament on constitutional amendments. Since then, nothing has taken place. The president instead has now been assigned the role of a minister, a cabinet minister, majorly to I am not sure, but when you invite him, he will tell us, Honorable Wanyoto here is telling me that he's happy. So for me, we looked at it differently. But it appears the head of state equally looked at it differently. So while we were imagining, we were establishing a transition process, for him, he was looking at a strategy to uproot the engine from the Democratic Party. So we are now demanding for our engine.
That is breaking news now.
So he uprooted it, parked it somewhere, it is not working, and our vehicle is now without an engine. So I think that is where we have commenced a very serious.
So,
and for the record, Ofonopondo is happy.
Of course, he was one of those that were the instruments of the chicken and the buncho, taking away our engine under a different guise and parking it for different purposes. Yes.
Okay, we come back to Ofonopondo, government spokesman. 39 years of NRM seems like forever. Should we be happy? Should we be satisfied that we've had NRM? I look at some of the young people in the studio here. They are not 40 years old, so they don't know any other.
About 73% of Uganda's population are below 40. The UBOS census report, 73% of Uganda's population is below 40. That implies those 73%, maybe 72% were born under NRM. And when you look at the population growth from 16 million then in 86 to 45.9, call it 46 million, thanks to the NRM, because that growth is not just having many children being born, but also living a relatively and increasingly qualitative life. If you look at the results of PLE released 2 days ago, we are now having 800,000 children sitting primary living examination. If you look at the last graduation of Makerere, many children. The girls, the females have consistently outstripped the boys. Oscar, you and I think Ochieno here, when we were doing Makerere, you could count the number of females in your course. Personally, I don't have any girl I was with in Mulande Primary School doing P7 who transited to S1. Yes, in my class, no girl moved with us to secondary school. I think 2 went and did teacher training, and have since fallen. In Igangeses, where I did my O and A level, we only have 3 girls, now 3 women. Justice Tibulia, who's now I think in the Supreme Court, or rather Court of Appeal or High Court. There's somebody called Elizabeth Kalembe. She's now a consultant in environmental things. There's Sarah Namadiba in UNEB. I think she has now retired. Those are the only 3 girls. And that school was big. So, 39 years of NRM hasn't created trauma, as Mr. Ochieno. When Ochieno left university together with me, 87, he fled. He went to UK because he said,
I fled from NRM.
He fled here and said, we are going to introduce communism. He was waiting for Bote's government to return. I am glad that he has returned on his own volition. These days we are with him in Nagongara. Yes, these days we are with him in Nagongara virtually every weekend. I find him in gumboots, is doing some little farming, but more like a peasant. More like a peasant. So I am glad that Ochieng is back. That you couldn't have returned it into trauma. I think the situation is much better. We may not have met all the expectations, but certainly Uganda is better. If you look at infrastructure, I've just said the last 1 week alone, I was in Kisoro. I came through Kabale. I drove through to Rukunjiri. I went to Kanungu. And I was teasing the Wachiga there in Kanunga. I said, you people, if it wasn't for NRM, the Wachiga had never seen a tarmac road, except the ones who had come to Kampala. Because when NRM came, the tarmac, I think, stopped in Mbarara.
When you talk to the president of Uganda, he can even tell you the mileage itself.
Yes. The tarmac...
And maybe in terms of mileage, it is not so good. Yeah, so that's why you're limiting yourself to tarmac.
From Ntungamo main junction, Rukungiri was a path, a village path. And now you go close to 86 kilometers up to Kanungu town. We now have the tarmac up to Araba. We have tarmac up to Moroto, and so on and so forth. So in terms of connectivity of the country, 39 years hasn't been in vain. And so is electricity. So are schools. You, Oscar, and I, we used to brag when we were in Makerere that Makerere was the best university south of the Sahara and north of the Limpopo. Ivory Town, because it was the only university in the country. Today, the government universities, I think there are like 14. If you add the private ones, I know many people, if my brother Semujo was here, he would say, this is development around the world. But Congo, DRC does not have. Does not have. And so there's something worth celebrating, 39 years of continuity, and not just continuity, but continuity with changes, positive changes. And so for me, 39 years haven't been in vain, and what leader just talked about, security. Oscar, you know, yesterday I told you I would not be here because we have been having serious dry season in Kapelebiong where I'm doing farming. And that place people burn bushes. So I've been clearing the bushes, but also the rain started earlier than we anticipated. So I had dashed to Kapelebiong for this weekend to prepare for the rain season. And then I received the call to come back for an urgent meeting today with the plot one. I drove from Kapelebiong. I came through Tororo, and I arrived here about 1 a.m. I couldn't have done that if it wasn't. And I'm sure many of you do that. So for me, that tranquility, that serenity, that security, and nobody stops you. You drive from here up to Arua without finding maybe traffic waving you down if you are the suspect you have committed a traffic offense. So, and you find
Thank you.
trucks of merchandise. One of the reasons, yes, we have bad roads, but one of the reasons for the traffic jams, particularly as you enter Kampala, you find heavy-duty goods vehicles, meaning that actually the economy is working. Now, we need to tickle Ugandans to see the opportunities in this economy. Okay. Because while some people say the economy is bad, there are people making good money in this bad economy. So it means actually the people are crying that the economy is bad. They are not seeing the opportunities. And so 39 years.
Let's go to another NRM person, Katesh. 39 years of NRM.
39 years of NRM is worth celebration because we just need to look at the statistics and the parameters. The macroeconomic stability that has been experienced during the NRM rule had never happened in the history of Uganda. If you look at the real economic growth, since 1986, we have been averaging at 6.1%. You look at the economic expansion, in 1986, our GDP was 14.4 trillion. 14.4 trillion. Now you are talking of, in purchasing power parity terms, about $220 billion. Okay? That's a very huge, more than 10 times the economy has expanded. The per capita income 1986 when NRM came was just $260. Now we are talking of 1,014 as at last year's World Bank statistics. We have gone into the middle income. OO has talked about roads. 1986, we had only 8% of the paved roads. That's about 1,000 kilometers. Now we are looking at about over almost 6,000 kilometers of paved roads. You look at power generation. We had 60 megawatts only in 1986 of power. Under NRM, we are now talking of over 2,600 megawatts. Our biggest problem now is absorption. We are about 2,000, not 2,600. We at peak capacity, we are consuming, we have surplus of about 9,960 megawatts. So there is success. It creates other problems which you must deal with as government. For example, how we evacuate this power and make sure people are connected. We had only 20 districts that were connected on national grid in 1986. Now you are talking of over 160. Even if you look at other factors like life expectancy, it was around 43%. In terms of factories, 1986, the count of factories in the whole country was only 80 factories. Now we are talking of over 6,000 factories. Foreign direct investment, virtually no one was bringing money here in the country. We are now talking of about, I think as at last year's statistics, about $3 billion. Even when you look at exports, we were exporting about less than $1 billion. Now we are talking of $7 billion exports. So if you look at the indicators of whether it is macroeconomics, whether it is social indicators, there has been significant change in this country for Ugandans. That is without to mention that the questions that we have, could we have grown better? Maybe should we be celebrating 6.1% or we should be celebrating 8%? Okay?
There's a Norman Magembe on X says, could you please stop celebrating the basics? If you claim to be middle income, please sound like middle income.
Those ones are not informed. They need to look at our neighbors. You know what? Those who say we celebrate basics should look at the neighbors we have had in this continent. No, not even South Sudan.
I'm looking at the neighbors.
No, just look at the whole of sub-Saharan country, sub-Saharan continent. So for
you're most welcome to Gang, Honorable Katumba.
So Oscar, for me,
thank you, but not that I've just walked in.
No.
For me, Oscar, we should be celebrating what we have achieved. What those people say that are basic achievement, they do not know. And I think it is our duty to be able to tell the story. But we should acknowledge the challenges that we have and ask ourselves whether we can do better than we have done. And I think there is room for us to do better if we minimize some of the incompetencies and leakages and some weaknesses around. And those ones, we should not be shy to talk about them. Even as NRM, we should be able to have a discussion and say, at the rate at which we are developing, can't we even achieve 8% if we are disciplined? If people who are in offices can do better, can't we be more competent to improve the lives of Ugandans even much better? That's a discussion we should be having and we should not shy away, but we should acknowledge that we have made good trends. And my friend here should not say that 39 years of misery, because he should tell us the misery, whether the economy has grown negative. And whether Uganda is worse off than he left it when he ran. If it was misery, he would not have come back.
Thank you, Katesh. Let's go to Lydia, the other NRM gangster today.
Oscar, you will have to protect Lydia.
I've just come, like Oo has said, I've just come from Busoga also, the presidential monitoring and assessment to household income programs of government, and like the PDM is one of those. So looking at testimonies of farmers and knowing what else we can do. So this week it was for Busoga sub-region. So while on it, I've been able to come back and join the gang because of, again, peace. You can move anytime. You can go to the communities and engage people, and then we see which gaps there and how we can do better to contribute to the socio-economic transformation of our country. We've come a long story. Many of us, 39 years ago, we were not able to. We were young, really. I was not active. I was just joining secondary school. So I can say that most of my life that I can account for, it has been under NRM. But this is the government that I know. So I cannot assume, perceive some nice thing that these Ochenos talk about, which I've never seen. I am an NRM child. When NRM came to power as a very young girl, just joining secondary school. So I joined what I've found in life, and I managed to contribute in my own space, because God does not promise us tomorrow. You can be waiting for better things and you don't live there. Yesterday we were burying the mother of Honorable Gume, but also you know that your namesake passed away, David Ofono, a very good cadre from Tororo. So when you know that you do not be promised tomorrow by God, you contribute where you are now, maybe on whichever side you are. But I think for me, I want to contribute to the government that is in power now and make my contribution while I'm still alive. My father, the late Jacob Wanyoto, was a very strong UPC stalwart. But those were his times. These UPCs came and took over his funeral. The big people, the late Sogwal, they came. But that was his time. And if NRM had not taken over power, we were part of the first family. I was in Obote's first family. Why? My auntie married a Doko Nechon. But that was for another day. Now I'm no longer in the line of the first family, but I survive. So I can't don't talk because I think you are like me. Our parents are part of the strong UP system. So you cannot talk about so much the past. We have to live today and move on to tomorrow. So that's my thinking, Oscar. And for tomorrow, it's good to have a day that you take stock, because even UPC had the Nyamurunga Day in Bushenyi. So it's good to have a day to take stock, but also pick challenges and see how best you can deal with the challenges. 39 years ago, there are those young people that I think Oo was describing that had challenges of that time, especially peace and security. Uganda is a land-connected country. If you look at our neighbors, it's very easy to spill into conflict, but we've managed to keep our small space in the country, up north, south, even on the other sides. We are a stable island that can do business, that can connect our countries, being land connected. Trucks and goods are driving through Gatuna, through Nimuli, up South Sudan, through the DRC, and we are here with stability, with the program now of looking at household income, tackling the challenges of poverty. If there are any other challenges, we put them on the table and then let's pass the battle. Leadership is about passing the battle. If people think that NRM 39 years is too long, why are you? We pass over, you get the baton and you run the country, because for sure, as day follows the night, we are not going to be here forever. None of us will be here, but there will be Ugandans, and Uganda will be here. so that everybody makes a contribution. Those that fought for independence made their contribution, and I don't know how many Oscar you can count who are still around. Maybe their families, but we have men and women that say Uganda must be independent. Oh, in the 1960s we were not there. Now in the 80s we're like we have been ruled with an iron hand. There's a gunfire. We've silenced the guns, but there are certain guns which are not yet. There's a poverty gun now that is feeding us. So how do we deal with the other challenges that are bedeviling our country, and we make that contribution? Because for sure 10, 15 or 30 years from now, like I've said, no, God never promises us tomorrow. You do your best when you wake up in the morning and you have the breath.
Thank you.
That's what I want. And for tomorrow I'll be in Mubende.
Yeah, you've said
be part
already.
of the community that is honoring this day.
Okay. Joseph, we cross over.
At the beginning, I intended to be very nice, as always. And I sought to not let you down.
Did you say as always?
Yes, sir.
Right.
And I sought to make sure that I didn't disappoint you about optimism of and within UPC and indeed this country. I must say that Lydia does extremely well in balancing her past, which quite clearly did not start in 1986, and the present. Ofonopondo is a fantastic peer person for this regime, and I've said so. And Amofono, in normal times, I always keep on saying, and I'm delighted that once upon a time, and this is deliberately knowing that people are listening, including your senior guys in government, that you're one of their best resources. So you do very good peer work for them.
No,
that said,
my country, I don't do for them.
that said, from your submissions, we can do the statistics, except we do not have the time. Between independence in 1962 and 1971, the economic turnaround in this country, to the extent that within only the first 3 years of independence, we saw a transfer in terms of economic ownership for the African peoples, meaning the indigenous Ugandans, from 12% in 1962 to 35% in 1965, within 3 years. These are the kind of indices that we should be talking about. We talk about education. Lydia, as early as 1963, there was a deliberate program to expand not only education post-independence, but to create girl-child institutions that included Toro Girls, Nabisunsa, Wanyange, et al. Across the country. So the deliberate reality is that Ofonopondo realizes that actually at Mulanda PS, he did not have, it does not remember, young girls. Does not really add up, but it's not about a competition of figures and numbers, but I'm giving context. I was lucky that I studied in St. Joseph's Nagongera, which was basically a boys' school. The number of top grade ones that went to top schools across the country was commensurate with the number of girls at Sesera Girls, Nagongera Girls, the next adjacent Girls Secondary School. So if it's about these figures, about education, really knowing very well that PL results came, and the only government a girls' school, secondary school leading in my bouquet with the Fono Opondo is Nagongera Girls, simply because it's a convent school. If you look at the figures, people in Tororo, people in Bukedi today are celebrating Division 2s, and they call that progress. Now, in my year, myself and a colleague, the person who followed me in order, we went to Mwiri. I don't know how many others went to top schools. So Ofon and I were discussing before coming on air what we can do, and people also need to know that, yes, once in a while, include with Ofon, we discuss genuine things about the growth and development of our people, and we're wondering how is it that we can seek to grow our Tororo. But we're not going to grow our Tororo without direct investment in public education. Now, as far as infrastructure is concerned, it is official. My Tororo district has not had one single extra road completed, tarmacked, since NRA came in 39 years ago, except the old Busia road, which is being worked on, but is not yet completed. So it's one road in my Toro district. It is also not inaccurate to suggest that the tarmac between here and Kegezi did not exist. No, I traveled up to Kabale. The only road that was waiting to be completed was Kabale-Katuna Road, and it was already on program. In my own home, Nagongera, tarmac was supposed to have been complete in 1989. Ojamu Fondo, Tororo Nagongera, Tororo Mulanda Buwesa Road was on program for 1989. So we can go on and on and on about this. So that is purely as far as education is concerned. And education is the number one equalizer. The only reason why I'm on this panel is not because of 39 years of NRA. It was because UPC deliberately worked at a program to enable possibilities for children across this country. By the way, in 1970, the best sub-region in education, PL results, was Bukedi. Do you know what? Followed by Karamoja. Education as an equalizer.
Really?
Oh, yes. And check your figures on that. Followed by Karamoja, and I think the next one was, Teso, actually, and I think Kigezi and Busoga. The worst performers was then East Mengo plus others. That is within 8 years. And again, some information for Fono. In 1972, the best pupil in the whole of the country in primary living came from Mahanga Primary School. Now, that was a newly built government primary school which had only hardly taken 8 years. I'm talking about a government that invests across the country, invests in the ordinary citizens of our country. Extraordinarily, Ofono is celebrating the trucks that he found on the road. No, in 39 years, NRA found train networks which are dead. NRA found public bus networks which are dead. UPC within 8 years, in fact 6 years, took train services from Soroti to Lira to Gulu to Pakwash, including Pakwash Bridge. Do you know the national grid only entered West Nile officially within the last 12 months? We can go on and on and on and on this. Do you know 39 years of NRA, we should contextualize it. In 1987, that was 18 months after these guys came to power. That is when I was sent into exile. I didn't go into exile. I was sent in exile from Makere. So that is 18 months, so you can assume that is about 1983. So if you've been in power for 2 years and you're still chasing away little boys and girls from Makere University simply because they don't agree with you, that is not peace and security. And then between 1986, stability only returned to northern Uganda after nearly 20 years. And Lydia and Katesh, you guys should begin to appreciate some of us who fought and at the same time persuaded, pushing Museveni and his external backers to bring stability, including ending the war in northern Uganda, meaning peacefully. So it's not 39 years of peace. As far as insecurity is concerned, good enough, Lydia, I was an adult enough because I hit 18 by the time these guys came. There was never insecurity in Bale before NRA came. There was never insecurity in Soroti before NRA came. There was never insecurity in Masaka before NRA came. There was never insecurity in Barra before NRA came. Insecurity, particularly during Obote 1 and Obote 2 government, particularly Obote 2 government, was simply because these NRA bandits were in the bushes of Luwero and they were throwing bombs here in Kampala. That was the time when we got insecurity. So in context, including in our own Padola of Fonopondo, our parliamentary candidate, just for the record, Odo Chwale was killed. And a number of people in Tororo relate that with the government. But Odo Chwale was a member of UFM and was killed in armed combat. That does not apply anywhere else. And it's a very sad thing.
How about the town clerk of Sudo? Was also in combat?
Those ones, I don't know the details about the Sudos, but I'm just giving contextual examples. But for anybody, actually, after 39 years, to think that Kizza Besigye is in jail, to think that somebody is threatening to hang Robert Kyagulanyi, after 39 years, and we're talking about democracy and rule of law, I don't know what we can. So, no, you guys need to have a sense of humility to say that, look, you've tried, you fought, we checked you guys, and by the way, my return from exile was when we fought competitively for return to multipartyism. And as soon as the Constitutional Court nullified Article 269 of the Constitution, it meant that I had to return to my country with absolute authority of President Obote coming to say, let's rebuild this country, let's go through the democratic process rather than the process of the gun. And that's basically the context. And Ofono, you need to be thanking me because you know one thing, in the unlikely event that we went to the bush, particularly in the mid-90s, had UPC gone to the bush, across the country, including the relatives of Leader Wanyoto, you know what, these NRA guys would not be in power. We simply thought that, no, this country had suffered enough. And we needed to make sure that, well, we give it time and go through a democratic process.
As I usually say, it's the most optimistic, Joseph. I'm not sure you'd have one as UPC going into the bush in the 90s.
But first of all, they were in government and they were chased.
No. We were
collapsed.
no.
So
We
how can you
we
say he would have
actually for the record, you can imagine that we're in government for 4.5 years, and for the 4.5 years Obote took government, while these guys were actually brutalizing Uganda, we opened up secondary schools, we opened up primary schools, we opened up universities, including preparations for Barra School, University of Science and Technology.
Thank you.
The economy was working. The economy was working. The government was working. This economy is working for Mr. Museveni and a few handfuls of his people.
Joseph, thank you. Let me go to our guest here, Honorable Mbide, 39 years of. And Joseph speaks so well of his faction of UPC. And I don't know whether you will say that his motto,
I don't have a faction. There's only one UPC. But some people in UPC are busy dining. But good luck to them.
Whether his engine was also stalled.
When I walked in,
The whole justice.
my young brother Mbide was talking about the engine taken away. So then I said, okay, now let me hear the shock absorbers.
Was maybe the UPC engine was also taken away.
The shock absorber is in the studio.
Right.
So
So
the whole justice of UPC.
it also went.
Yeah.
Bambi.
So, and that accounts to generally the 39-year performance
Wow.
of the NRM government. Of course, we are going to make a mistake if, in terms of assessment of performance of government, we are comparing it with the Uganda's former self. My take would be, let us make comparisons with other countries. Because if you compare, for example, my intelligence capacity with the kind of wisdom I possessed during primary school, in my opinion, that comparison would be a logical impossibility. Let us benchmark, let us find out. 39 years uninterrupted. Because you see, when you hear our colleagues here talking about roads constructed, when we have a majority of Ugandans born after 1990, they actually, the achievements of NRM compared to what it was by the time it took power for 39 years, to Ugandans of below 25 years of age, sounds academic. They grew up seeing the roads. So they actually do not know what these people are talking about. They grew up hearing, they found FM stations, they found everything. So let us look at good governance. And for me, I do not want to look at good governance in terms of the existence of political parties, existence of elections, periodical. Because we have countries with democracy, like Somaliland, for example, but struggling to be countries. We have good governance in countries that have no elections in the Middle East, and that's where we run to. Our young people run to for jobs. Then we have countries with the periodical elections like Uganda, but without a democracy to talk about. So we must now be assessing in comparison with other, of course, countries. When our colleagues talk about foreign direct investment, then why don't we address it qualitatively? One, what are the flaws? Because if we establish foreign direct investment in an area, one, where Uganda has a direct access to a foreign market, then Uganda becomes majorly a roundabout of resources other than a stopover. Two, if you allow foreign direct investment in the food sector, then we are missing out on establishing a robust indigenous-based economy. So what I want is to make a qualitative analysis and assessment. Why? Because there are countries whose quotas are closed for export purposes. For example, in the US and AGOA. Now, if you invite those countries to establish investments here, give them our land, in fact, unvalued land, because the president thinks that actually, when Thailand investors come here for agricultural purposes, they are helping Uganda, which is not the case. They are actually running away where they are unwanted. Land-intensive investments in Thailand are no longer really required. So they run here. And what happens, investment in the food sector is extremely out-competing the otherwise it would have been an indigenous-based economy for indigenous Ugandans here. When you look at what used to happen, what happened in South Africa, the problem between Massmart and Walmart, when Walmart wanted to take over Massmart, people rioted. They said, no, we cannot allow a foreign direct investor to invest in the food market in South Africa. This is ours. So without that qualitative analysis, then we can't know where government is going right. Two, what is, for example, the cartel that we have established for a foreign direct investor who, in effect, his investment is going to be calculated in terms of the job market, for example. How many jobs have been produced? But the same investor, who is Chinese, comes to Uganda. He is the managing director. His relative, who is also Chinese, is the general manager. Now the cashier is actually a daughter, who is also Chinese. What the Ugandans can be able to do is to be the one who's carrying the bells of what has been produced to the lorry. But even the person counting the bells is Chinese. So jobs created, but jobs taken by the same investors. Now, how are you going to assess? And clearly, this is why the labor external market is flourishing beyond repair. Because the only available job opening now for young people, for Gen Zs, is actually the Middle East.
And you have to invest to go there.
You have to.
Well,
now,
you need a minimum of what?
now,
4 million?
If you assess Uganda in terms of that, then there is a problem. Pardon? So what are we looking at? Establish. What are the tenets of good governance? What are the institutions? The institutions by nomenclature are established. But you see, when you stay longer in power, you run a risk of establishing very strong mechanisms for long stay. And clearly now what the government has done, with the institutions in place, it has choreographed a system of puppetry. That now they are all led by their puppets, where the president is actually the puppet master, now operating them as muppets. Now, this is what we are looking at. So you find that all institutions are actually the question, and the president is the answer. All institutions, by the way, there are things we used to say that these are arms of government. But now they are his arms. All of them are his arms now. And without question. So there is a problem. When you look at, because now people, one person asked me, by the way, we are about to get into elections. Elections are in 2026. I said, no, 2026 is voting in January. Elections are this year. But people are not aware because they really have lost touch. They don't know even the effectual, whether elections are effectual anymore. Why? The person counting the votes is appointed by a candidate. And I can tell you, even when that person was, recently there was a rumor in the newspapers that actually the Electoral Commission has been changed. New persons had been appointed. I can tell you without mentioning any name that I was contacted as somebody who is believed to be a deputy president of a minister who is probably in charge. Is it true that these rumors are correct? by very serious people. They were, in fact, the kind of fear they were living in is whether or not they have lost their jobs. Now, tell me, at the confirmation that was just a rumor, that celebration, I am telling you that they underwent, clearly gives the credence to the kind of announcements that they will make. I am telling you.
The puppet and the muppet. So you are saying the parliament, the muppet. The judiciary is the chief muppet.
Then the puppet master is now pulling the strings. So I am telling you, that is what it is. If you want to assess that on account of good governance, then obviously the 39-year rule, they have managed to stay on, but not to work for long. And the achievements clearly can talk for themselves. So we need to be comparative in terms of, for example, before you mentioned that this road was constructed, let us look at one, the quality of roads index in Africa. Is Uganda mentioned in the first 10 countries? No. But Rwanda is mentioned as number 3. 2, the road connectivity in Africa. Is Uganda mentioned? No. Kenya is number 7. So let us assess, not in terms of what they have done, but how they have done it and compared to what others have done. Then you will assess their long stay. Is it effectual? Yeah, but we have compared it to South Sudan. Yes, recently I was in South Sudan, and you see, when they were driving me, I asked them, but what is happening to roads? The taxi person, the Uber, he actually told me that, yeah, by the way, but there is a good road there. It was last constructed when we became a country. So at the inauguration day, that is when those roads were constructed. To date, nothing has been added. If that is the comparison, like Honorable Katutu has said, yes, Honorable Ponda here will tell you they have done wonders. Because how else would they beat South Sudan if they haven't? So
let me put a pause on you, Honorable Mbi. And we go to Honorable Katuntu. 39 years of NRM.
it's very difficult to come to a microphone after the Democratic Party shock absorber. But, okay, I think we just, need to put everything in context. And I don't want to take the path of chest thumping, but I also want to appreciate what has been achieved over the last 39 years, because we need to have a fair debate. And sometimes if you have the chest thumpers and then, I don't know if I was Honorable Mbid, I would use that word, I don't know, you don't have a very good word for it. Then you have those who are really, yes, then you have those who are just critics. Then we lose out on, we want to have a fair assessment, a critical fair assessment. In 1986, definitely, Uganda was around 16 million people. In 2024, Oscar, we are 46 million people.
And an NRM achievement?
Yes and no. Yes, there is natural growth. With or without NRM, would certainly not be 16 million people. However, with some interventions NRM has made, it's possible, especially on life expectancy and so on, it's possible we have had an increase related to that. The economy, and listen to this, the economy of 16 million people cannot be the same economy of 46 million people. I mean, it's just purely common sense. The production of 16 million people cannot be the same production of 46 million people. If you are talking about, take for example, housing, because I don't want someone to say, you look everywhere, there are houses. If you are having 16 million people, how are you going to house them? And if you're having 46 million people, definitely you'll have an increase, a natural growth increase. Similarly, the roads of 16 million people and the roads of 46 million people. Similar about schools. If you are going to educate a population of 16 million people, you'll have fewer schools than those who are going.
The road capacity.
No, actually, DRC, let me tell you a story. And that's why also you should do. And I know you read, but sometimes you read the wrong things. DRC is a huge country in terms of geography. So what they decided is for them to invest more in airports. For example, if you are to move from Kinshasa to Goma, you will not have this road moving from Kinshasa to Goma or even other places and so on. But secondly, there is war, especially in the areas where you are talking about. So comparing that to Uganda, your argument is exactly the same thing we've been talking about, comparing Uganda to South Sudan, and for which you also got a little bit tensed up when it was brought. So don't compare eggs and not.
For the record, he did.
Yes, he did. No, but yes, it is part of it. By the way, you can even go worldwide. It is in contextual.
There are countries with smaller population, but they are producing much more than those.
No, they are not producing much more, but they could have natural resources of those countries. And I'll give you an example. If you are an oil-producing country, you could have a smaller population, but you'd exploit, and then if you're looking at the figures, you'll think it is. But it's not. There are other countries. I'll give you an example.
South Korea?
No, I'm going to give you...
Malaysia?
South Korea has oil?
Which
No.
one? They have decided to take other production out of population related. But I'll give you an example. Take, for example, India. Take, for example, China. Take, for example, Mexico. And you can go on and on. Development and population are related. And you can have, that's why today, if you are looking at the trajectory, India, first of all, it has passed Chinese population. And it is estimated that in the next 30 years, the Indian economy is going to be bigger than that of China. Anyway, we can go into basic economics, but that's not what has brought me here today. So even when you are talking about foreign, what my brother Katesh was talking about, FIDs, you know, if I am going to invest in an area and there is a population, there is a market, I'll put more money there, because whatever I'll produce, it will be bought. If it is a smaller population, you'll have to wonder why you should even invest more.
Abdul, just pause there for a small second, and we stop for a break.
Yes.
Welcome back from the break, and in the break we are discussing figures. Abdul, continue with your discussion. You'll close it.
So to me, if we are looking, there are factors of what we call natural growth, and a population of 46 will certainly produce more than a population of 16 million. However, that does not take away credit from what the NRM has done. You may give a little bit of background, like Joseph, that actually maybe they were the cause of the problem of peace. Because when you talk about peace, yes, it is true. We've got to congratulate NRM that today this country is peaceful. I mean, that one, we don't want to run away from it. We are peaceful.
After 20 years.
It doesn't matter whether after 20 or 40, but we're looking as it is today. At least from Kisoro to Karamoja, or from Arua to Buvuma, people can go to bed at 3 a.m. and so on. And even when you are having engaged in production, people can trade in the night, trucks, goods and services. For example, you are running a clinic. There is a health clinic. You can offer 24 hours because of peace. And that we should all value it because it's a common good. So we don't have to have a debate about that. However, it is also a little bit mediocre to imagine that it is time to chest thump. I think because we have achieved this, but it's not time for chest thumping. We could have done far more if we are doing things the correct way. And I think that should be Joseph's point. For example, Oscar.
Well, it is Mukasambide's point.
Actually, Mukasambide's point. For example, with the sort of the size of our economy, couldn't we have created even jobs which are twice what we have today?
Who built the size of that economy? Under which regime?
No, it has been. Let me tell you, the entire of this economy has not built by the NRM. That's wrong.
I didn't say only.
NRM has been part and parcel of this country to build this economy. I thought that's common sense. You are going to check. But it's me who is on the microphone.
Yeah.
Leave Joseph out of this.
Are you saying NRM hasn't been disturbed? Because for you, Osheno is making an excuse that they couldn't do well because NRM was disturbing them in Luweero.
Okay.
Hasn't NRM been disturbed?
Excellent.
Okay.
This point of NRM striking Luweero and Kampala.
Just let me answer that. Let us look at the areas and the times NRM was disturbed. And you tell me whether there was any production during that area. The time the war...
We don't need to go there. But you continue with your line. You're saying that we could do better.
Far better. In terms of job creation, in terms of economic development. Because you see, what we are looking at, and Katesh knows this better than me, we look more at economic growth and forget economic development. And we need to make a distinction. Because you see, if we are looking at economic growth, yes, economic growth means basically, like I said last time, it's about the increase of goods and services, production. But you need to go beyond that and look at economic development. And let us look at the indicators of big economic development. And anybody on this table who is honest to this country will realize that in terms of economic development, we may not be doing all that very well. That's why OO says that there is a section of people who are really making big money. I agree with you, OO. There is a section of people in this country.
It's the one talking.
But I'm not. Yes, I could be one of them. And I have no regrets doing well. There is no. But you know, any economy.
You're right. You are not average.
No, of course I am not.
That's the point.
I am not. And I have never pretended to be average.
Conclude, Abdul, on this topic.
So, but in any economy, even today in Somalia, there is a section making money. Even in South Sudan today, there is a section of population making big money. So it's not about one section which makes money. Yes, you always have that. But what we should be concerned with is the average Ugandan. Is he comfortable or there is something amiss? And if we can do things better, we can turn that economic growth to benefit the majority of our people to economic development. And that's what I thought NRMs would be grappling with, other than just something about economic growth.
And that's why they brought PDM. This season, we will have an opportunity to discuss PDM. But I'm coming back to you, Honorable Mukasambide, on our next topic, which is graduation. I'm not so sure what the graduation numbers were from Makerere University, but they must have been many because there was a graduation ceremony nearly every day last week. So all those have been released onto the job market. And where do they go? I've had an opportunity. I was in the airport twice in a week. The first time in the evening, afternoon, and I saw like about 3 buses.
The trauma of exits.
I don't know about trauma of exit, but the excitement of exit. All these 3 busloads of people seeking work elsewhere. Do Makerere graduates also go? Do they get absorbed in our market here in Uganda?
In Uganda, of course. You know, there is a response procedure by all universities and schools for what was established by colonial masters as the style of education. I must also say, I think
go on.
tertiary institution financing in Uganda between 1988 to date, I think government preferred to privatize the education system, particularly university education system. And that has increased the number of persons leaving tertiary institutions as qualified persons. What I do not think, and this is very nice when you relate it even to, of course, poverty eradication and alleviation procedures. You see, when you look at poverty attacks the population in a multiplicity of models. There is a gender-based model that traditionally women were not likely to earn. They were domestic personalities. So clearly there is a poverty model that is gender-based. There is a poverty model that is academic-based. When you spend 14 years in something called school without earning, there is a poverty model related to that. So when one looks at poverty alleviation models and does not look at a model of university leavers, then you know there is something left out to be handled. So the job market, for somebody who has studied psychology, for example, well, some political parties now are led by those that require some psychological attention. So clearly, of course, there is a job to do. But I can tell you that the job market is not contemplating the kind of persons that actually leave universities. It is very unlikely. Most of our school leavers are majorly theoretical. They are threateningly academic. And the method of education, from primary 1 to primary 7, all a child needs to think about is that there is school tomorrow. Now, from primary 7, a child is preoccupied with whether or not they will join Ntale school, Mwiri, or they will flourish in some of the village schools that we also attended. Now, from senior 6, then the preoccupation of a student is whether they will join Makerere, Nkumba, Aduku. Then at university, the preoccupation is whether you will pursue 311, 322, or 300. Now, there is no substantive, objective reason that makes it a logical necessity for somebody to go to school up to university level. And clearly now that one has to be streamlined. Tertiary institution financing and scrutiny must be now a substantive policy for government going forward. I know that government has responded. I know that curricula has actually been amended, but you find somebody who has graduated in ICT but does not know how to, for example, disentangle a chip. They have graduated in software, but hardware is where actually jobs are located. So in Uganda, it is a hodgepodge. It is like a madman throwing stones, but everything you hit, you call it the target.
My brothers are graduated in what?
Software.
But the jobs are in hardware.
So, but I can see.
If you graduate in librarianship and there are no libraries, so what are you doing?
So, and that is very true. Students are graduating in librarianship, but they find nobody is interested in even establishing a library or going to one. They are all on TikTok. Now, somebody graduates. My first degree was Bachelor of Mass Communication. And I thought I was going to be a very good journalist. Until I found that actually DJs were better journalists. Then I quickly had to go back for law. Now
you're a lawyer.
At least now the competition is not high. Because clearly you become a lawyer, but performance is at at the whims of your own dexterity and stoicism. So their competition is not available that much. I can tell you, our education system, when you go to primary school in Germany, you find them studying the curricula of children of primary schools in Germany includes oil drilling. Now, they don't have oil. Now, in Uganda, we are studying the history of Germany. So, meaning that by the time our children grow up, they will need experts from Germany to drill their oil, while Germans don't need experts to teach their own history. So, that is what is explaining the job market. So, are we training for jobs or are we training for qualifications? Now you have graduates, everybody thinking that actually the best job is in parliament. You find them councillors, but the idiots are winning. There was one time, and I don't want to talk about some brother because he is now the late. There was one time I saw a young man. He had met the late Honorable Segirinya, and he took a photograph and updated his status. I have met my Honorable MP, Honorable Segirinya, and we have shared words of wisdom. I said, now, if he has shared words of wisdom with Honorable Segirinya, now I started wondering about his own wisdom. Because so that is what is happening now.
Let me go to Katesh.
Katesh, can we share words of wisdom? Nobody wondering.
From Bushenyi.
In some ways,
Yes.
Katesh, you are responsible for this migration of Ugandans when you were the tax body. Because, many Ugandans are unable to work even after graduation, so they've all migrated, and they are now not contributing to any form of tax.
Oscar, any country that progresses will always face problems arising out of its own successes. This is what we should know, and it's across the whole world. And I just wanted to tell my brothers here, when they say you could have done much, yes, and perhaps no. In 1986, the whole country was collecting revenue of 5 billion shillings. 5 billion. Now perhaps that's pocket change for O's office.
Put it in dollars. Don't imagine.
5 billion. No, I'm talking about it because if you look at our budget, even as recent as 2006, the entire correction is now almost one budget for one ministry. That's how we are talking of 31 trillion. So that journey, you must manage your expectations. Much as we have.
What I'm saying, for us to get a realistic figure,
yes,
put that money in dollars.
You can convert. You have a calculator.
Because you see, the 5 billion of 1986 is not the 5 billion of today.
No, it's not. Is it equivalent to that 1 trillion we are collecting?
It is
definitely
not.
So, Mr. Honorable Katuntu, with all due respect, even when you talk of our neighbors, you look at the numbers. 1986 and 2014. If you look at both the per capita, the GDP of Kenya and Uganda.
Oscar, we go back to that.
No. I'm coming to your issue. We have all grown at 93%. Of course, the other one is a bigger economy. So if you go to the challenge of education now, when I grew up in Shema there, I remember at that time the only university everybody was talking about was Makerere. Yeah. Makerere, we used to have everybody who left Makerere was guaranteed of a job.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
How many universities are you talking about? So we have had universities come up. The issue is the quality of education and the relevance of education we are having, and that's what we should be focusing on. I visited the university in Thailand, in Bangkok, a University of Technology. They take in kids as young as in primary school, and by the time they finish, they go out with companies they have created because they are producing something. So we should be discussing, saying, look, we have focused on the numbers. Now the qualitative aspect, you cannot offload thousands of graduates and not have that challenge. The total jobs we have in the country by government are less than 500,000. The total jobs by all the industries we've talked about, it's about 1.2 million. So combined together, both government and industries, you cannot absorb 2 million Ugandans. So what does that mean? It means that then we must look at how do we produce people who can create jobs. And also look at employment. Ugandans define employment as, going to work for someone. You can actually, we must be able to change our mindset to know that employment means you also self-employment. And that's why I pity people who undermine programs like PDM, small as they look. Okay? If someone is able, if you look at our income per capita, $1,000, if I can have many Ugandans employ themselves and be able to earn 3 times our average per capita in a year, then we make a lot of sense. And so we have to make sure that people are productive, they create jobs. Even if you have, then they will be able to consume, and our revenue base will be able to grow and become bigger. So it's a journey we should all be aware of. But how do we now move forward? We have to make sure that our curriculum changes. The kind of graduates we are producing, it is a very, very big problem. And we are disappointed. We've discussed in Parliament now. We are changing a curriculum. We've been discussing it. Now some people are going to graduate, to finish senior 4. They go to senior 6. But we are not perhaps ready with the new curriculum. So there are issues in education which we should be able to confront and say the graduates you are producing, can they lead us to the future? These TikToks that we are talking about, the other day I was talking to a scholar who said, we have people who have been graduating in IT, in systems, and I challenged them and I say, look at the government of Uganda. The amount of money we are spending in systems, software, even a revenue collection system, all these systems that the government is taking on. How many of those systems are developed by Ugandans? How many social media platforms, even an Uber? We should be liberating ourselves. But we have graduates, they have. If you go to places like South Korea or these Chinese, they have developed their own solutions, whether it is social media. But for us, we are just consumers. Anything comes, we consume. And then yet we have graduates of technology. We have invested money in innovation, but we are not seeing the qualitative outcome. So that should be the discussion, to say we had this success, we have so many people, but they are not serving us for tomorrow. Yeah. What can we do?
Okay. Joseph, so many graduates.
Joseph externalized his labor 87 to when?
Ofonopon is just
externalized your labor into UK.
Interestingly, I was very sad that after fantastic education under both UPC and even under Idi Amin's, when I excelled in my primary education, I had to go and serve excellently public services in Europe. And I still talk about it very commonly, considering the very apparent skills shortage in the streets of Kampala and Tororo, and skills shortage. I'm talking about the kind of things that Katesh is talking about. Quite clearly, in my university days, we used to call it training needs. So it is true that I found myself outside, but it was obviously voluntary. So, Ofono, don't go there.
Or if you tell him don't go there, that's where he'll go.
Abdu and I have been chatting, and one of the obvious things I think that we need to respond to is this question of one university in 1986. For the record, the University of Science and Technology in Barara was an initiative, a program that by the time these guys came from the bushes, we were already part of a program. Again, I'll tell Mr. Ofonopondo that, in fact, when Nagongera National Teachers College was founded, part of the then program of government was that the then next University for the Arts would be in the east, whether or not it was part of Nagongera or somewhere in Busia or wherever. And then 3, part of the extension was that each region would have a university. But Abdu, in his fantastic lawyer position, but very analytical in terms of figures, our population then was just about 16 million people. Beyond that, we need to know that while people went to Makerere University, and it was the university of choice anyway because of its excellence, and now it has just been, I don't know what it is, but I was there as part of the graduation last week.
Oscar, 1 second, as information. By 1985, Makerere had already expanded. You remember?
Yeah.
They had taken over what you are calling now Nakawa Business, Makerere University Business School. It was now Makerere. Chambogo, which is Chambogo University, had also gone to Makerere, had all taken over Chambogo. That was the Faculty of Technology and so on. And that's when the UPC2 administration created the National Teachers College and then the national technical colleges all over the country. So this issue about expansion of university education to cater for the increasing number of students to acquiring was already in place. In 1986, what does the NRM do immediately? It closes Chambogo and gets back the faculties of Makerere again. It closes Nakawa, it gets the after around again 10 years, they do the same. 2 steps forward, 5 steps backward. There are things we should look back and say we could have done better.
Including closing of Mulanda Teacher Training College, which was part of a graduate expansion that Abdu is talking about. But also number 2, beyond university education, there was national teachers colleges and technical institutions at diploma level. Guys who graduated then, including grade 3 teacher trainers of those times, were much more qualitatively responsible. Apparently, as it happens, my brother was merely a grade 3 teacher, posted in Jeru, then after that posted in Abdu's place in Busesa, and then after Busesa, they go to teach in Kenya. But they were so highly regarded that they were teaching in secondary schools. So in Kenya, and they're doing well. So
it was possible.
They went to Kenya when in the early part of your rather very difficult part of NRA time when you couldn't actually absorb them. So that's important. But Oscar, at Makerere last week, where my nephew graduated fantastically, I was there, and of course the total number is about 13,000, as they said. Yes, so it's a big number. I saw with interest the excitement of young people at the university on the site of graduation, and what I was wondering, Ojame, is that you can see the beauty of excitement by these young people. But 2 things. Just imagine these privileged young people. We are talking about big numbers, but they're still represented in representative terms, very few. Because those of us who come from rural Uganda and are interested in ordinary average Ugandans, we know how many Ugandans complete senior 6 and then they go ahead to clean restaurants because they can't access university education. In any case, at the time, we're providing university education qualitatively, by and large, free, using local taxes that would have been generated, and I hope by the Katesh departments, as it were. I saw the Vice Chancellor Labour in his speech, and I'll just say so deliberately, possibly he's even listening. I was actually quite disappointed that the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University is talking, but without really emphasizing some of the issues that we are raising today. Beyond the challenges facing higher education, the issues to do with job creations and the future of possibilities of industrial development and things like that. To the extent that the Chancellor of Makerere, who's basically cadre Chancellor anyway, who is it Crispus Kionga? I expected him to be coming out with some big thought, big idea, the kind of conversation we're having on this program, but it was not. Yes, you generate these numbers of graduates, and then you're not looking at the level of unemployment. You're not looking about the level of job creations. We can't really create these jobs when we give handouts to Pineti. We can't create jobs of honor when Tororo was the second most industrialized town in Uganda. Today, as you and I were discussing, that's our hometown, is an average mini slum. Jinja was deliberately designed as our national industrial capital. At the moment, it's neither here nor there. Katesh talks about the industries. We don't know how many of those industries that he's talking about today necessarily employ and is going to employ many of these graduates. So there has been total absence of planning as far as catering for graduates is concerned. In any case, anyway, if it had been the case that my nephew, who graduated in teacher training 20 years ago, has got a guaranteed access to go and teach in Busesa Secondary School, government secondary school, and not to buy himself out, possibly those possibilities will be there. Katesh, you're talking about people creating opportunities. As I said, we give money to Pineti. But I know, and I know many people who are listening to this program, they've got innovations and initiatives. They don't know where to get money, to support either their startups or to support their innovations. The way in which we went to schools, including who here went to meet with me,
just look on your left.
so young man. So
last sentence.
Merely at all level in many of these established schools, you go to school labs, and school labs will give you strategic deep thought enough for you to come out of that, graduate at whatever level, possibly even finish Chambogo Technical Institution. There's an enabling environment in which you're able to create jobs and create opportunities and create possibilities. At the moment, people graduate, and it's traumatic, those guys that we see at airports. By the way, I genuinely feel sad for these people. Seeing a trail of our young people, particularly young, beautiful girls, going away to go ahead and do very, very terrible and horrible cleaning jobs
for a break.
In the Middle East.
Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. Let me finish the people on my right. Honorable Katuntu. So many graduated last week. Ochieno's Obi.
The problem is that elites
you are the ones who was celebrating
but when the content doesn't come out. When you listen to Ochieno, it doesn't seem to have said it in the at all.
There's no need to respond to that one.
Yeah, I know. When the problem is when you are judged by somebody from Iganga or something.
Oh no, but when you're arguing about the same table.
Okay. Now, light moments aside,
leave schools
Oscar,
alone.
First of all, I want to congratulate the graduates on the achievements. I know it's not very easy to achieve that milestone, and especially the parents who sacrifice a lot, because 80% of those graduates have been on private sponsorship. So meaning parents have
probably more than 80%.
Actually, probably more than 80%. Parents have been been able to save money here, sometimes even sell what they have.
We have paid fees.
To pay fees and their children to have a better future. But my view has always been, and I've urged this out in Parliament several times, I've not succeeded to the extent I want. Let us look at the tigers. Economies are not necessarily built on degrees. No. If you look at how those countries took off, you need more of an artisan industry professionals. Because in the history of this country, especially during the colonies and World War I, they try to do one thing. Say, look here, yes, you may have the university degrees, but you're going to have a big part of your population, younger people. What you need to teach them survival skills. That's why we established technical colleges all over the country, real colleges. OO is here. In the neighborhood of the school he went to, there was that Iganga Technical College, just in the neighborhood. I think maybe less than half a kilometer from Iganga, yes. And what was the purpose, Oscar, of those technical colleges? One, at primary level, there are many young people who will not go beyond P7. How do we tap that people, give them the necessary skills for them to survive? Whether carpentry, tailoring, mechanics, mention it. Then you go to senior 4. There is again almost 40% of the students finishing senior 4 will not go beyond senior 4. You tap them and give them the skills. Then you go to high school senior 6 and you even tap them, those who usually went to colleges like Chambogo, and they had finished senior 6, they could not go to universities, and therefore they could go and get a degree in diploma in mechanical engineering, and they can survive. And some of them today, they would be looking at things like repairing these phones. You don't need a degree to repair a mobile phone. Each and every village today, there could be a need for a repairer of a phone. And these are the sort of emphasis, in my view, if I was at the helm of education, that's what I would be promoting.
You're in Parliament.
I said I've urged out several times, but I may be urging out one of Opondo from Iganges, yes. They don't listen.
You're doing 25 years in Parliament.
Yes,
please.
And you see,
put this in Parliament.
That's why, for those who believe in religion, they teach every day on Sunday, since the world goes, and on Fridays. But people continue committing crimes and obscenities and atheism like OO. So to me, what we need, Oscar, is a pyramid. Because the majority of our people, the young people, go dropping up at certain levels. And the degrees should only be at the apex up there. So, and when you look at figures, I don't know what them last time we here, the number of kids who were enrolled at primary 1, but they have not gone beyond P7. I think they have gone to some millions.
Yeah. The figure reported in this week is 797,000.
Who didn't
sat PLE? Who sat?
No, but how many 7 years ago enrolled?
No. We have been having a total primary school about 8 million, 9, about a total primary school.
So, what we are saying.
How many started P1?
Yes, and those who have not been able to.
You could say maybe 2 million or so. But
2. And those who have even reached P7 and are not going maybe around a million also.
The ones who sat at 797, which is an improvement. A few years ago, it was down at 600 and something. Now it's been going up.
So, but the point is there are many people stopping at that level. And we should be able or even before, we should be able to capture them at a technical college level, and you could go on and on up to university. So we need to rethink the people who are really, because now I see a lot of friends about universities, degree in degree in hair, degree in air, degree in something,
degree in Uganda,
degree in Japadola, degree in it's all those sort. Yes, we may need them, but we don't need 100 graduates of degree in Lusoga. You get it?
Yeah.
So to me, we really need to rethink our education and our investment should be in the technical colleges.
Let me cross over to the yellows. Ofono Pondo.
No, I associate myself with some of the comments made by my colleagues already. But one of the things NRM had a battle with, the Ugandan elites, 86-95. You remember our battles with the Makerere elites, the guild presidency of Norbert Mao, Mokasa Mbide, and so on and so forth. When the Honorable Manya Mchaga was the Minister of Education. Because our education has been built on elitism, it has taken us a very long time to shift how do we fund education? Which levels should we fund? Primary education, secondary education was completely private. When you go to the colleges up with the Strong About and Makerere, that now was free. The government was providing everything free. And then NRM said, no, let us reduce on public funding of colleges and universities. We put more money, one, in universal health. We put more money in universal primary education. So that all the children who should be in school should be in primary schools. So that we raise the level of literacy. It has taken us these 39 years to move a step. I think if we could make that decisive step, Abudu, particularly the executive and parliament, who allocate and appropriate resources, we would do a better job. Over the years, we have expanded actually technical colleges. We have increased the numbers from where the Cheno likes providing. Technical institutes, if you go around, I think virtually every district has a technical institute by government.
Has.
Virtually, particularly the older districts, the vocationals. And now recently, the president, I think, not wanting to fight so much with the bureaucracies, he took the route of skills hubs. Because the skills hubs, you actually don't need even P7, as long as you are willing to go and learn bakery, tailoring, leather tanning, and things like those, cobblering and things, carpentry and joinery. So he took that route. I don't know if it is sustainable. Maybe eventually when the president probably is no longer, those skills hubs will be transferred, ought to be transferred, in my view, to the Ministry of Education. And then in the Ministry of Education, I think we need to have a strong technical and vocational department. And in Parliament as well. And then we can. Now, externalization of labor in itself, I don't find any problem. But also, where is the mindset? I think we have something. And by the way, if you go to these technical colleges of government, the ones I'm talking about, you go to Masaka, you go to Nakasongola here, you go to Jinja, the intake is at about 30%. Why? Because with the parents and the guardians and the children themselves, we are not encouraging. We want every child to go to Busoga University to study Lusoga. You remember the battle I've had with the Buganda Kingdom, who pushed through to teach Luganda. And then the ones from the Ankole Belt also came. We also want Rujakatara to be taught at university level. And we spent a lot of time in that. So we need to push parents and guardians, proper, how do you call it, teaching children, directing them where the future lies. Career guidance. But as we stand now, everybody wants to go for a degree. Now, look at the areas of Uganda.
Aspires.
Look at the areas of Uganda where most of the people seeking externalization of labor are coming from. First and foremost, they are from the central region. Other areas do, yes, but the majority are here. And what do they do? What do the children, the people in Uganda here do? They sell land, 10, 30, 50 million sometimes, to get passport, to get a visa, to get air ticket. And you ask them, you say,
or to buy a boda
yes,
boda.
This 30 million you have spent to go to Dubai to earn 800,000 shillings a month. If you started a kiosk, if you started a cottage, and you are consistent for the next 5 years, wouldn't you make better money? They will think that you are callous. You don't have a feeling for them. 2, some of them are going for skills jobs, but the overwhelming majority don't go for skills jobs. They go for dishwashing, like our university graduates in 1988 who are running away from the communism of NRM. They went to wash dishes in the UK. A university graduate was going to teach.
In 1988, most of them
yes.
were actually exiles, were refugees.
No, yes, but a number of them also went to wash dishes. And you ask them, and are there no dishes in Uganda to wash? Are there no toilets in Uganda to
do
scrub?
they pay well?
No. Leave the question of payment first. But are there no dishes in Uganda to wash? So that you go and seek to wash dishes in the Middle East?
Well, the majority of us, our time, went to South Africa.
I'm raising. So we need to deal with the mindset of the young people, but the mindset of the young person needs to be dealt with from the mindset of the parent, of the guardians. Many people finish university here. You can hear people now crying about it, that they want to go to America, they want to go. Abu Dandai, since we completed the university, I don't think we have ever talked, and we have had opportunity to say, even, and yet we are the ones who completed the university at the hard times, the beginning of the NRM, who could have gone. But there are many colleagues of ours who left. They went down South Africa, Swaziland, apartheid South Africa, and so on, and Europe. They are now beginning to come back. And I remember we used to teach them, we said, you have gone, but you will come back and you will have to fix this pothole in Uganda. They are now coming back when they are 55 and they have nowhere to start. The social security system in the UK is not supporting them. They run back here.
I'd like to put to you that those are the minority. That's not an average Ugandan you're talking about.
No. There was a time when the bulk of people completing university or education in Uganda thought going to work outside, running away from Uganda, the difficulties of Uganda was a better option. And we told them, time will come when you come back. But
many of them are still there and thriving.
How many of them? How many of them?
I know for sure. They have Ugandan associations.
No.
They these days even have NUP groups or NRM groups. Very many.
Those are the minority.
Often even sends them money for that UNA convention.
No. But let us look at the job market.
Conclude, then we go to Lydia.
Our economy is growing. Yes, there are people who are looking for good. The good opportunities outside, but the overwhelming majority of Ugandans are here. Those
they are
factories,
the ones you need to address.
Yes. When you look at the people who go outside and the people who remain here, who are the majority? The majority are here and are working here.
So you must talk about those.
What Katesh talked about, the thousands of factories, the thousands of cottage industries. If you go to Lira today, you go to Gulu today, you go to Soweto today, you go to Mbarara, you go to Masaka, you go to the areas of Wakiso, Mukono, Kampala, there are many cottage industries coming up. And that's what we need to promote, bring a policy, and then the support system
for
the cottage industries to expand. That will absorb
graduation
many
last
of the
week.
people getting.
So
and
13,000.
they don't need to be people who are graduating from Makerere.
Hey, give way.
It needs to be people graduating at whatever.
Give way.
And willing
Lydia,
to change their mind.
Graduation happened last week.
I would like to congratulate our graduates, but there are also many other institutes. You know, these days sometimes it's difficult to tell which graduation ceremony is for a degree or for or a nursery, because they all wear these gowns with the hoods, and they are all, and you cannot imagine the excitement of parents, even at nursery. So this, and my question goes back to standards. I've been discussing issues of standards because this is the work of government as a policy matter. I also want to congratulate the parents and the children, but also UNEB, because you've received results for PLE, and I think they just have 2 weeks for them to enroll to their next level, either going to secondary school or to otherwise. My opinion is that government should provide leadership on building competencies for Ugandans. Parents should play a supportive role or option, but let every child find their names on some notice board somewhere. Then a parent can choose that my child will not go to this place, but let government take the lead. It's very, very unfair for results to come out and you don't find your child in. And then you begin. My phone call last night, it was jammed because I'm an old girl of Gayaza High School. Fortunately for me, I went to Fairway Primary School in Imbale. I walked from Naboya to Fairway. After P7, I was one of the best. My admission came through post office. Now today they call you an old girl of Gayaza. Fix my daughter got 5. But parents are so stressed. Why? Because they're not sure that the child with 2nd grade or 3rd grade will find their name somewhere on the notice board. Government must get these children somewhere, so that you say my child didn't go to this technical school or for this secondary school as an option of the parent. Not leave parents run up and down, get stressed. That's where the problem starts. We must be able to account to every child in Uganda as government. Let the parents now choose not to follow what government has chosen for you, but that option must, than just leaving them out there. The second point, which Honorable Makasa Bide talked about, which I want to draw parallels again to university graduates, because I'm part of also the East African Community and Regional Bloc, we look at best practices and experiences. Goes back to standards. In our neighboring countries, they care about merit. In the days of OO, I don't know whom they looked after, but we went to school with people who excelled in academics. In my time, the best child in the Uganda in my time was David Nechon. He's a doctor now. He defeated us in P7. In S4, he was in the Budo. Senior 6, he went to medical school. He's a doctor now in Akan Hospital in Nairobi. I'm just giving an example. But there's our neighboring universities. The moment you excel in academics, they pick you from. We have now 54 universities, chartered universities. The government tracks. There is a committee that tracks those IQ brilliant children, and they build them to be the A class of the country, because our IQs are not there. Let's give it to them. But now we don't know. Like, let me.
MPC qualifications are being disputed.
Let me come to that. Then I'm talking about standards, so that people can have those Ugandans of their cohorts. Is it cohort? Even in the training of forces, or you're a trainer in some of the forces, these cohorts, you always have a bright child, a bright student. They get better ranks, high ranks, so that you also become competitive. And even in terms of character, those who are leaders, myself and Mbide, I don't know who else, we were student leaders in our time in Makerere. And after that, our type of groups. No, at different times, but the type of, I was a student leader in Makerere, and I think also Mbide, I don't know who else here was, but in our time, In our neighboring countries, I will not mention, like now Tanzania, if I want to mention, they would not leave us to hustle. They would say Lydia was the chairperson of University Hall or a good president. They take you up. They collect all of you from the 54 universities with your executive, because now you've shown leadership of your generation. You go train in leadership institutions like Chankwanzi, or from there you are attached to embassies of your countries abroad to get that exposure. It's not happening here. After you have been a student leader at university, you begin hustling, in media houses, you now go back options of law school, you begin hustling to go to parliament. You've not been built as a leader, yet you have people you have led at university. We are not the same people. The people I led at my time at Makerere, they are now maybe PSCs or commissioners, but they see me as their leader at the time when we were at university. So in other countries, without to mention, let me give an example of Tanzania. If you've been a guild student and executive in Dar es Salaam University, and so many like now Morogoro and others, they will take you to train in their schools, or they take you to the army. Then from there you are attached as part of the exposure to the embassies abroad. Yeah, we teach, but to embassies abroad. That's why I know about this, because I'm invited to teach at universities outside Uganda, in the EAC and at defense universities, but not in Uganda. Uganda, who knows you? We will not build the culture to build cadres and to build leaders of the next generation. Now, the point I'm trying to raise is that when you're talking about employment opportunities, when this cadre of leaders go to embassies, they will now go for those meetings at the AU. They'll go to the meetings at the UN or any other like these core missions, Nairobi, Addis, where. After that, they will be able to get competitive in those jobs. We don't even have an external program for international jobs. The jobs they're talking about are these ones of washing plates, but what about filling the quotas of the UN, of the AU, of all these regional blocks that we are so proudly talking about? You must build capacity for people to be competitive. Now, one Ugandan in the UN can look after a sub-county back at home. It goes without saying, because they are exposed, but they earn better, and they are better quality deployed than what you're talking about now. Now, if you talk about the mass line is Parish Development Model. Now we can come back to the mass line where they are majority, but let's begin with the core, so that everybody belongs to their own segments. We cannot be all the same.
Thank you, Lydia. We have 4 minutes to the end of the show. Let's have a 1 minute final word on gang today, beginning with you, Honorable Katesh.
Well, I think for me, we have to have a mixed development model for this country. And I agree we have to look at the opportunities that we need to do at the mass line, and also at the top of the pyramid. Having said that, the biggest problem we must deal with is mindset. Yeah. I traveled one time by road from Chankwanzi all the way to Yantonde. And I can tell you that, just look at a crop like coffee. If you have an acre of land and you are just thinking that you are going to go abroad to work as in someone's house, and you leave your acre of land here, where you can plant coffee and earn $1 million shillings.
Do graduates have an acre of land? That's something.
No, but if you move around this whole country, you'll see land. You see land that is unutilized.
Thank you.
And for me,
thank you, Katesh. We just have run out of time. Okay. Joseph, 1 minute.
Just that I hope that a future government post this NRM refocuses on education to ensure that it is possible for a child from Bukedi to be the best in the country, and that when they are best in the country, like Leader said fantastically, that there's opportunities and possibilities for them to be the best in the next stages in their education. And then after that, when they graduate, there's a possibility that they can get a job in President's office, like Mr. Museveni got one freely in President's office in 1970.
Thank you. Joseph, you should go to Chigo Thinkers website. We publish some papers on the need for creating a thinking person, looking at the perspectives of education. Abdul, your 1 minute.
The chaps making wonders in Silicon Valley are not necessarily your PhD fellows. And we need to pick lessons. In my view, if we really must tap the majority of our young people who badly need jobs, and jobs relevant to this economy, we need to invest more in technical and vocational education.
That's what the NRM government is saying. Your 1 minute?
I said they invest more.
Invest more.
Well, NRM stands for partly
National Resistance Movement.
Yes. Fighting.
On that one,
but I think,
call it Lydia.
Yeah, but I think patronage at all levels by nearly all of us is killing the country.
Okay.
We know we merit. If you ask any average member of parliament, minister, and you say there is a job, they will either look for their political supporters or their relatives.
Yes.
And I think
meritocracy.
They are the ones they know.
Yes. It is something that we must deal with.
Patronage. Lydia, 1 minute.
I congratulate the 39ers, the way Mbide has called us, approachable. But tomorrow is not just for celebration of thumb chasing, like Cartoon has said. It's to reflect and see what else lies ahead of us. Okay. We need to deal with the devil or the new war on the table or in the house, so that we are able to make a contribution going forward. The next 39 years should be better.
Corruption?
Yes, corruption is one of them, but there are many.
Honorable Midday.
I agree.
Guest on gang today, final word?
Yes.
Final word on gang. Only your microphone is on.
Yes, I would like to, first of all, appeal to government that because of the nature of its operations, we have now evolved a system of idiots with the quorum in our body politic. And I can tell you they have quorum. They are continuing to vote for their own, for every position of authority. So now government needs to develop an idiot detection system.
So when you say idiots, you're quoting someone. This is your word.
This is something you can. It is developed from one of the sitcoms, The Office. That is one of the situation comedies. They said that, you see, idiots can even dazzle you with wrong opinions. They can get promoted before you, even on job. They can even become president. When you look at countries, it almost happened here. So we need now to develop an idiot detection system as a country, because that is one of the results of this 39-year operation.
Thank you, the listeners of the Capital Gang. Thank you, Honorable Katuntu, Honorable Katesh, Honorable Midday, Honorable Anyoto. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joseph Otieno. Thank you very much. Otieno, sorry. Thank you, Fono Pondo. Star Cafe, thank you for powering the gang. I am Oscar Semoyam Soke, and I shall see you next week. We didn't talk about PLE, there wasn't enough time. We didn't talk about Americans suspending everything.
I think that we should do next
time. Yes.
The new US government we should talk on next.